Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Pablo Crivello. I'm on the Chiron side for about 3 years now. I've been working with them. My specialties are on training, customer success, as well as commissioning. The idea on this training is to go through the whole process on the Prime intro training, as well as since we are going to be working with you throughout these 4 days, is to go a little bit deeper on the editor side and on the playout side. So the more the merrier. The idea here is also to upgrade Prime, to show upgrade processes, to show engineering processes, playout configurations, limitations, and as well correlations with other software that we have here, since I have seen that you had Lyric and Prime open up as well. So before proceeding, I would like to know if you have any questions or you have anything in particular that you would like to know, to stop me whenever you feel like it, whenever you would like to have a or whenever you have a question, stop me on my tracks, say, hey, I would like to see this in particular. I would like to review this part in particular, and we can go through that process. I'm sharing my screen so you can see it, as well as this course is being recorded. If you need anything from my side, or if you want to reach me in particular for any kind of commission or any kind of upgrade, you can always reach back to the customer success line, or you can reach me by using my address. I will leave it on the comments right below it. So, first of all, let me. Mhm. Okay, a general overview. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, first of all, yes. Mhm. The idea is that we would use it as a port configuration through automation. You can do that. Usually, you go through. I don't know if you have a flow control or or an object server such as Cameo that takes care. Mhm. So with Sony, what you can do is, if you're not going to go through the Cameo, Cameo is the object server that you can purchase from Cameo. The idea is that Cameo will deliver the MOS objects back to the switcher, and that switcher can behave as a playlist. I think you're using a Sony ELC. Is that correct? I would need to see if that panel is capable. But the idea is that if you don't have the Cameo, you can go through automation and you can add the corresponding intelligent interface to it. And the idea is that if Sony is able to send commands and rules through the environment, you would add it through here, add a corresponding port to connection for the connection, and we can review all the rules and commands that Sony can send back to the Prime, so you can play it throughout in an automation side without using the playout environment. So hmm, we have some examples of how you can communicate with Prime and from the external sources. You can also communicate through TCP/IP or raw data. So Prime is very flexible when it comes to communication. But okay, but you could send commands or um or trigger behaviors on the Sony, okay, then you should be able to send commands throughout the Prime without any issues. So, what we are going to do for starters is we're going to download the new version of Prime. Is this box connected to the internet? I would think so. So what we are going to do is we're going to close that. We're going to get the latest version of Prime, as well as we are going to, as I'm going to show you how to get the latest version of the expected NVIDIA environment. So 551. Hey, we are a little bit ahead. Okay, then we might need to downgrade the version of NVIDIA. So what we're going to do is we're going to do three things. First of all, we're going to remove Prime altogether. This is the take this as the more basic Prime behavior, which is we are going to remove and add the software. We're going to remove and add all the software that gets added with Prime as well as the other versions. So the idea is that we're going to remove three objects from Prime, three software. So the Prime 3.8, the Prime Engine, which is the one that takes care of the mini windows that you see, as well as the connection to the Matrox, and the Matrox driver in this case because we are modifying or getting a new version of the Matrox. And the fourth is the SDI, is the mini BNC card that you have on the back of the unit. Okay. Hmm. Yes, of course. And you can get, instead of a 4K signal, you could get eight spigots for uh, because 4K, you're run right now. You're using 4K, right? 4K 50i. Okay, so the idea is that you have four spigots, and you're using fill and key, right? So you're using four spigots to output 4K fill and four spigots for 4K key. So what you would do is, instead of using that, you would use just two spigots, one for fill and one for key for 1080, or for any kind of output that you want to have for fill and key, and up to 1080p, so up to full HD. And you could have up to four connections on that instead of having a 4K output. And that's license. If you have 4K, you have license for the other ones. So what we're going to do, we're going to download the software here. If you have your own accounts, you can log in with your own accounts. I'm going through incognito so my information doesn't get saved. Yes, perfect. So let me confirm with the two factor. Um, so the process for this is 68. The process for upgrade is very simple. Once you get inside of whenever you log in with your own account, you will not see all of these objects. You will see only Prime if you have license for Prime. These are all the software that we have at the moment, and with all the corresponding glasses version and the previous version as well. Right now, as you can see, you have 3.8, which is 3.80, which is this version here, which is from 2021. We're going to go and bump it all the way to 491, which is the latest version and which is the more complete version of the software. It has a lot of features that were added, as well as a lot of different logic. That's why when I asked if we needed 4.8 version for a specific reason. It means that Prime is bound by their versions as well as their scenes. So if you have a scene that, for example, has some specific logic built into it, there might be some things on the newer versions that might not be able to run those scenes. If you have, for example, a new sticker or a general branding program such as BTI or any third party that connects to a satellite or to a newscast sector and receives feeds through local source through my bad through state sources such as state satellites or information that comes through um, the how is it called through RSS feeds. It could be that the logic embedded into it's not the same one that it uses on the newer versions of Prime. That's why we recommend to always, if you already have a graphical package, stay on that version or review the new graphical package before jumping into the new version if it is compatible. So right now what we're doing is we're getting the 491. 491 gets the Prime engine, gets the GS2, gets the Matrox version, and gets the Prime version. So it's a little bit of a big or beefy installer. It has 1.3 gigs, but it has all the requirements to run Prime, as well as all the extra features that you could add, such as cesium, or if you have any um, particular third-party apps that you would like to integrate, it will also be integrated here. If you have NDI, it could be also be loaded. It has all the packages features that you would need on Prime. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get the newer version of NVIDIA, or the version that we recommend for NVIDIA. So we're going to go into third-party apps, and we're going to get right. The versions usually we have them certified because those are locked. It's not that they're locked, but they are, since Prime 491, for example, is based on a specific NVIDIA version. We recommend to stay on those NVIDIA versions where the software was developed on, because there are some minor changes that could behave on a different scale. We have been having issues on 553, for example, which is the one that you have currently now, with Prime 471, for example. And it's a specific version, and that's why we recommend to always stick with the versions that we send over or that we install the environment with. Right now, the more stable version for 491, as you can see, we have a newer set of versions. But since we do not only have Prime, we have other software that behaves with NVIDIA. There are other software that behaves with 537 and software that behaves better with 528. Right now, we are using 528 for Prime and 537 for other environments such as the Unreal Engine environment. That's why we are not going to get 537. But as soon as we have a newer version and that version gets certified to go through 537, or whenever my account was disconnected. One sec. Am I? Yep, now I'm connected. Okay. Um, okay, okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop one of them to finish up. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Uh, let's see if these finish it up quickly, because let me also show you a particular thing that comes with NVIDIA or comes with the Prime upgrade. I think that they fixed it on Prime 491, but it was something that was an issue before. We also have lyric here. I know that you're not going to use it, but we also have it, and I saw it open on the. I saw it open as a software. Uh, Let me remind you one thing, which is important. Prime and lyric are both character generators, but they both share the same matrix. So if you have Prime, you cannot have Lyric open. If you're not going to use Lyric, I would recommend to remove the shortcut. If you're going to use it, keep it as well. But just for more of a clarity standpoint for the operator or for the user, if you have Prime, please do not have Lyric open because that could lead up to a confusion on the matrix board, or it could lead up to having an SDI not outputting one of the channels because it will grab it through the lyric, or it could crash, or it could have uh, an unexpected behavior. You're able to use it. Come again. Lyric is the prior version to Prime. So Lyric was the older character generator. You can do most of the things that you can do with Prime, but the main difference is that Prime has a playout and an editor side, and the editor is a very beefy editor, whereas LyricX is on the same canvas that you are editing, you're sending the graphics on live. It has some limitations, such as you can only have 1 to 2 frame buffers instead of playout channels, whereas on Prime you could have up to 8, or more, up to 16 mini windows or matrix channels, or matrix channel, no, prime engine channels. Let me be more clear on that. Um, and there were some limitations, as well as there were some things that were more developed on Lyric, which are not developed on Prime, such as the flare options and the use of lighting. Lyric is more guided towards sports venues at the moment, but Prime is more guided towards broadcasting, as well as right now 491, and since 48, Prime is going through an internal change to be more behave more like Lyric, so we can finish Lyric in a couple of years, because that's our main interest, to swap all our software back to Prime, because Prime is a newer version, is a newer software, and that's the main feature with Lyric. Lyric was such a good software on its time that there is a lot of people that likes or pretty much prefers Lyric because it already knows it, how it behaves, how to run it, how to use the shortcuts, how to load up the specific shortcuts, and how it behaves. That they need to have a way to accommodate for the Prime and the new behavior in Prime, because for example the shortcuts or the playout behavior that Lyric has is completely different as the playout behavior that Prime has. The message recall, the look and feel on the software is very different. So yes, yes, totally. Right. If you are only working with Prime, yes, I would suggest to remove the shortcut, but not the software, because you could always have an operator that uses Lyric or a graphical package that uses Lyric. You are licensed for it. That's why we prefer to have it maybe on the environment, but not on the um, but not completely removed. If you are going to use strictly Prime, we can remove it, but you are licensed for it. Okay, 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 okay. So let me take it out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install the previous version of NVIDIA. And this is important when you're going through a minor upgrade on Prime. The idea is that if you need to modify or upgrade the NVIDIA version because they found maybe a bug, or maybe you're jumping from 491 to 495 and you need, and we recommend another NVIDIA version with that. It's such as an example. Um, the idea is that we firstly, before anything, we need to move the NVIDIA version. And after that, we need to move the Prime version because the Prime engine gets attached to the NVIDIA version. So if you move the NVIDIA version, you will get a dialog box saying, hey, the Prime engine environment is not using the corresponding NVIDIA version that was designed for. And it will be just a pop-up that is something that will not generate you any issues, but it's just a quick reminder that you are not using the version that was installed previously. That's why we prefer to always get the NVIDIA version first and then the Prime, so you don't get that pop-up. Because whenever you register a new Prime engine, that Prime engine will get with installed with that NVIDIA profile. So we are going through NVIDIA. We're going to start up with the common. Uh, since we are more on an engineering side, I would like to take it more throughout a troubleshoot thing or a troubleshoot first steps, and then move more towards Prime itself. So we have NVIDIA here. We are installing NVIDIA. There are some NVIDIA versions that will remove or clean out um, the NVIDIA profile, such as bigger versions from, for example, 461 all the way to 528, for example. Or if you want to have a clean install, that could also show you an issue on the NVIDIA. NVIDIA has a couple of things that we need to take into consideration. First of all, I'm going to restart the box so all the version gets applied. So we're going to restart later, and we're going to trigger the restart from here. Give me one sec. The idea is that whenever you go through an NVIDIA upgrade, if there is a chance for you to have a clean install or a clean upgrade from NVIDIA, what you will have in some occasions is that if you're using an EDIT, I don't know if you know what an EDIT is, but it's a replacement for a monitor. And it would be a virtual monitor that gets created throughout NVIDIA platform topology. If you get that removed and you don't have any cables connected to the back of the NVIDIA unit, what you would get is an NVIDIA that is not being powered or is not being turned on as a high powered environment. So you will not get the corresponding GUI from Prime as well as for Windows. So no OpenGL, no no graphics driver. You would get, for example, if you're going through a KVM, you would get a very sluggish behavior, as well as you would get issues with playing out clips or scenes or uh, or interact with Prime. You will not get matrix playouts. You will get everything grayed out. You will have a lot of troubles. The idea is that whenever you go through the process of an NVIDIA upgrade, you would either have a cable connected to the back of the unit. I don't know, how do you have it connected right now? Are you going through a KVM? Hmm. Okay, so the idea is that if we go to the NVIDIA right now, you will see the topology as well as you will see all the features on the NVIDIA. But if there were an issue where the connection goes through an edit and that edit lose control, I would ask you to connect maybe a dongle or a dummy to the back of the unit to trigger that NVIDIA connection, to trigger that NVIDIA power surge, which turns on the NVIDIA RTX. So another thing to take into consideration, we have a set of passwords on the Chiron environment. I don't know if you have changed them. I don't know if you have modified them. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to Let me paste it here. The user and password. Let me paste it on the chat. So by default, we have these as a user and password. Oh, wait. Administrator Chyronhego. Uh, where is it? Here is it. So this is the password. That user, let me, if I could remove it, because that's for the render, the old render. I got a, there, I have it here. So let me paste it on here. So this is the user and password that we currently use for all the newer environments. Then if you had any old environments, there could be a possibility that we could need to use the older set of credentials, which could be any of these ones that I'm pasting right now. This is because when we had other Chiron products, we tend to have different passwords for them. But now that we have standardized everything, we use Chyronhego and Chyronhego for user and password. So now we have NVIDIA connected. We can review the control panel on NVIDIA. We would see a pop-up if there was if this was an upgrade on the version. But since we're going down a version, no pop-up should appear. And down here we have the workstation view system topology. And here we have the HDMI extended, which is the one that you have connected on the back of the unit. What we are going to do to also ensure that no GUI or no issues are in between the NVIDIA output and the cable, because, for example, what it could happen in some occasions is that if you is it using the HDMI port, or is it using the display to HDMI? Okay, so the if the display port gets maybe cut over, gets torn, gets whatever it could be, or maybe the HDMI is not working as expected. You could have an issue with the output that resets itself every once in a while, or if you could have an issue on the cable itself. What we're going to do is we're going to create a replacement, not a replacement for the cable, but a replacement for the behavior. So if the cable fails, what it will do is it will load the edit, which is this virtual screen that will take the same parameters that you have here, and it will load a virtual screen. So uh, even if the cable gets run down or gets cutted or has issues, you will not lose the GUI, and you will not lose the NVIDIA topology, and as well as the OpenGL uh, connection. So what we're going to do, we're going to create an edit, and we are going to load it on the same place that you have the HDMI. And now you would see a little monitor on here. That's how you know you have a virtual connection on the unit. So now if you remove the port, you will not see the connection on your window, but what I will see is that the device is currently running with the NVIDIA as it behaving as it should have this HDMI extender loaded in. So now what we are going to do is we're going to install the Prime 491. Okay. I want to see setup folder 38, compact setup. Okay. So let's see. Let me remove some of the clutter that we have here. Turn off and search icon. Accept. Next. News and interest. Turn off. There we go. Now, there are some things that we need to add, such as the Net6 runtime. And here is so whenever we are installing Prime, And you saw that we removed Prime Engine and GS2. So here on the bundle, we have the pre-requirements, such as Net Framework, that we need to add, Sentinel, which is the one that takes care of the licensing, Prime Engine, TK5 Toolkit. So this is the GS, and this is the Prime Engine that we removed. And down here, we have the external components that we could have, such as, for example, the Matrox driver, NDI if you had NDI, Cesium for the virtual environments, endpoint if you want to connect it on the Cameo side, folder watcher if you want to have a folder watcher or a hot folder that reads your content and sends the content into either a network environment. Automation standardization layer if you have any kind of automation already for a third-party app. In this case, we're going to just go for the Matrox install, as well as the last component is Prime, which is you cannot uncheck it because it's the Prime installer by itself. So what it's going to do is it's going to connect to the net runtime. It's going to grab that, install it, Sentinel, Prime Engine, and GS2. Lastly, it's going to install Matrox. And since Matrox is it's outside of Prime, it's a third-party component, and the Matrox driver upgrade requires a different uh, behavior that is not software. It's more on a hardware environment. It's on a board level. What it will do is it will ask you to reboot the unit once it finishes to upgrade the Matrox. So what it will do is it will open a Matrox window. It will start upgrading the Matrox board, and then it will flash the board. So give it one moment. So there you go. There we have the Matrox installer. And this is the thing that you need to do in all the versions whenever you're moving from a minor version to a higher up version. And this is what we recommend to do to remove the matrix, even if you're going through a minor upgrade, because there is there should be a specific um, set of bug fixes as well as new upgrades that lets you know whenever you're installing a new version of Prime. But there are versions where it doesn't let you know if you have a newer version, Matrix version. So what we recommend is always remove everything. If you're using Matrix, remove Matrix driver and install the new version of Prime. So we have NVIDIA covered at the moment. So we have if NVIDIA fails, or if anything happens to NVIDIA, or if you're running through an issue with the cables to load and edit, what we are going to do right now is we are not going to launch Prime, and we're going to finish up the Matrox startup process. Matrox requires now that you disable Hibernate to enable the newer high-profile version for Matrox. So what we are going to do is we're going to load CMD. This is a one thing on a one issue that you have. As soon as we disable Hibernate, there shouldn't be any issues. Uh, yes, CMD, and then config, Hibernate off. There we go. So this can be, if you press intro, this should disappear. Okay, seems like it's a little up on that. Uh, that's weird. It should, oh, because it's flashing the matrix, my bad. So the Hibernate is already off, so you're in a high profile environment. And now it will ask you to update the firmware. For that, you will need to reboot the unit because the firmware works before the operating system. I'm going to reboot it from the top so I can reconnect. I'm going to wait for the partner, and we are going to do another reboot to apply those changes. If you're able to see the prime BIOS, or if you're able to see the load up behavior, you would see that it will say matrix flashing. So you would go through the BIOS and then it will go through the matrix flashing process. It will take maybe 10 seconds more than the usual startup time, and you will get the new prime version, the new matrix version loaded into the environment. Now, if by any chance we upgrade the matrix and throughout the upgrade, matrix fails to upgrade the device, this tends to happen if you lose power, if you have a power surge whenever you are going through the upgrade procedure on the firmware, or if you have if the driver doesn't get to upgrade in a timely fashion. For example, if he gets an issue on the firmware upgrade and it times out, what you could get is a gray state of the matrix board. That gray state of the matrix board requires you to have a more hands-on approach on the unit. Do you have a 3 RU unit or you have a 2 RU unit by any chance? You have a 2 RU unit? Okay, so the 2 RU units are a little bit more complicated to disassemble, but what you would need to do, okay, in this case is you need to remove the lid from the top. There usually when this happens, you're going through an upgrade with a Chiron specialist, so they know how to tackle the issue, but it requires you to unrack the unit, power it off as well, remove all the cables from the back, unrack the unit, and remove the lid. And since you have a 2 unit rack, you would have the NVIDIA RTX, and below the NVIDIA RTX on a horizontal side, you have the Matrix. So what it happens is that Matrix stays on a gray state, so it will not show up on the operating system, and it will not show up on the Matrix info behavior screen. What we would need to do is to set it up in a safe state so it can rearm the Matrix. And after we go through that process, we need to move it back to the normal state. I will show you the corresponding PDF because I have it here, as well as I will paste it in the chat if you need it, or if you ever if you ever want to read it out. Uh, this is the Matrix PDF manual for the LA4. So it's free. Am I typing something wrong? No. Uh, Matrix. PDF. Yes, that's the manual on the chat, and we are going to review it right now on Google Chrome. So if anything happens to the Matrix board, we are going to see it first of all when we launch Prime, because it will say that no connection was detected. For example, if now we open up Prime, since we're on 3.8 and now we are on 4.9, since the difference is big, what we might need to do is we might need to reload, create a new project. No, iPrime projects. We will need to recreate the output because we're in a very old version. So default, English. We can set it up to another language if you prefer, but let me tell you, Prime does not have the best traduction on some languages. I'm mainly a Spanish speaker. My maiden language is Spanish, and it's a little bit quirky on some sites. So instead of saying play as reproduce, it says play as playing a game, as jugar. So it doesn't have a lot of sense. So let's open up the other projects. Uh, which is your, let's open news demo. Which are your preferred projects? Do you have a specific project already created? K-on, for example? Okay. So, okay. So as you can see, you have a new look. So we are going through a more of a dark theme. The idea is that we have also modified the configuration drop down, as well as some views and some play and some help uh, to make it more clear for the user. For example, configuration has more of an import configuration, export configuration if you need to move it on into another environment. And now, if you had issues with the, and let me go back, if you had issues with Matrox, what you will see here is you will see a big screen, a big dialog box saying issues to connect to the render channel. Issues to connect to render channel number one or to output one. It will take care. It will take the name of the output that is connected to the matrix. And what you would see is something like the following thing. You would see everything close. I'm just going to give you a visual preview on how it would be. So you would have something like this. This would be your image. So, and if you click output here, nothing would happen. If you go through and wanted to reset the layout to have the normal layout, nothing would happen. It will give you various dialog box saying, hey, I cannot connect to the output. So that's the first thing that you would that would call your attention and say, hey, what's happening with Prime? This was not happening. This just happened after I upgraded the Matrix driver. Uh, then what you can do is you can go down here. This is the Matrix info panel, and you would see Matrix topology utils. You will see the version, and you would need to see right here an extra uh, um, page that connects to the corresponding hardware, and that will give you the serial number, the product date. If you do not get this extra page, you're not reading information from the matrix board. Do not panic. It means that it doesn't recognize the matrix board. So it means that we have an issue and we might need to reset. Either we need to reset the board if the issue comes without any modifications of the driver, or we would need to reset uh, the firmware because it was not upgraded correctly. So if this tends to happen, the last check that we would do is we would go into device manager to ensure that no matrix is being recognized. Because if you see it, if you don't see it here, but you see it here, it means that it might need a reset instead of a complete remove, modify of the switch and reset of the driver of the board. So if you see it here, it means that the matrix might need to be either rebooted, reinstall a newer version of the driver because it's not compatible with Prime, or maybe just reset the unit. If you don't see anything on here, what you would need to do is you would need to, and we really encourage it, you would need to reach out to one of the current support lines, and we will guide you through the process. But if what you have to do, you have to do it on the spot because, for example, you need to fix this in 30 or less minutes, and you cannot wait for any support line. We have the Matrix DSX LA4, or maybe you're outside of the calling hours, depending on your support plan. You can go to the page 20 that has this same the process that you would need to do to ensure that the matrix is working correctly. So what we would need to do is on the page 20 to enable safety recovery mode after a failed firmware upgrade is we just need to move the switch from normal to safety. So unrack the unit, power it off, remove the lead. If you are able to reach it without removing the NVIDIA board, I would not suggest for you to to go through that process. It's better to have a clean workflow or a clean work environment. I would suggest you to remove the NVIDIA, switch the Matrox driver to safety, the Matrox port to safety, the switch, reconnect the NVIDIA drive, the NVIDIA board, connect everything, power on the device. Whenever you start up your computer, you will get that prompt of flashing Matrox. Okay. After you flash the Matrox, turn off the device once again, remove the NVIDIA board, modify from safety to normal, and reconnect everything back. And what you would get is the Matrox version. If this was a Matrox version issue, you will get the newer Matrox version. If this was an issue because you modify the firmware of the Matrox, you will get the previous firmware version. So what I'm referring to firmware is that, for example, what you want to get instead of a 4K output, you would like to have instead of a 4K output, you would like to have 4 ins, like you were doing branding. So you would like to have 4 cameras being fed in as a downstream, and you would like to have 4 fields, four keys for those cameras that are being used as DSKs, as downstream inputs. So you will need to modify the corresponding inputs and outputs down here. So for example, if what you want to do is you want to have, let me add a new set of a new file. So this is a new configuration file. You can do as many configuration files as you want. The idea is that those can change whenever you start up Prime. But if you modify the amounts of inputs and outputs, you will get this requested or required behavior. If you want to upgrade, if you want to have 2 inputs as well as 1 output, for example, in this case, you need to update the firmware to have 4 and 4. So 4 ins, 4 outs instead of 0 and 8. That will trigger the same process that you had before, where the BIOS was flashed on the Matrox. And this could also lead to the issue that no Matrox was detected. If that happens, what it will do is it will, whenever it recovers, whenever you go through the recover process, it will go back to 0 and 8. And you can try it once again to firmware flash it. Okay. Oh, my bad. Sorry for that. Let me see if I can. No, I cannot shut down the notifications. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this CG profile. And we're going to keep the default one with 0 and 8. So that covers the Matrox issues. There is also another Matrox issue that I would like to cover, which is a specific one. Once in a while, once every year, I would suggest, or if you want to have the user document this once every couple of months, you can see the FPGA temperature on here. If this temperature goes over 70 or goes over 80, it means that the Matrox fan could be not working properly, or could be filled with dust, or could be filled with, or could have a malfunction. Maybe the bearings are overused and it's not spinning as it should. So here it will give you a fan warning, and you will have the temperature of the FPGA going through in a 70 or 80 range. Okay, it will have some, maybe you would start seeing some visual glitches, such as blinking in some of the four SDIs. And what we suggest is you either reach back to us so we can provide you a new Matrox board, okay, or in the time between that we provide you a new Matrox board, there is a modification to the Matrox that you can apply, which we give to the unit to the users once the problem arises. Because if not, you are overusing the fan on the FPGA board. What we are triggering is a safety. We are removing a safety and we are enforcing the max fan spin rate, so the temperatures keep are kept low, but the fan is being overused. That's why we do not recommend to for the client to have it if it's not an emergency or if it's not having any issues, because it overuses the fan and it creates a shorter life cycle for the unit. If you ever have it, please reach back again to support and we can provide you with that software. Or if the client has it, please reach back to us and we can provide you with that specific fix until you receive the new board, which you would need to upgrade to the corresponding matrix version. The newer boards are usually on the base versions. For example, on I think they were on 100 on the 100th version. Here's the 103, if I'm not mistaken. 10.3, so they are on the 10th version, 10 of 0. And this is the 10.3.101.740. Um, Other issues that could happen if you have a package that was maybe you have a package that was designed for an older version of Prime, that was given to you by maybe a broadcasting environment, and they say, hey, we would need to really use this package. You can get older versions of Prime, but if those versions are a lot lower than that 4.9, for example, 4.9.1, that you're using maybe 4.5, 4.4, 4.1, 4.4.1, you might need to go back into the Matrix version. Usually they are retro compatible, the newer ones with the older versions of Prime, but we have seen some logic and we have seen some audio outputs that are not working properly with the older versions of Prime. If that happens, you need to downgrade the Matrix version as well. We always recommend to have the same Matrix version that the Prime installer has. So we have covered a couple of NVIDIA issues, or most of the NVIDIA issues. We have covered most of the Matrix versions, or most of the Matrix issues. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. Your your licenses hold into a dongle, which is inside of the unit. It's a USB stick. We put it inside of the units because we have seen we usually gave it to the user on a on a how is it called on a package. But the issue was that whenever they connected on the back, maybe there were people that had the Prime units and the USB was sticking out, and they could potentially break it by going back and forth throughout the environment. You never know when the environment is going to be exposed to the weather conditions or to the people's condition, where you got someone going over and passing through the units very closely to the back of the units. There were occasions where the USB sticks were broken or were, uh, well, they were removed from the environment because they were colliding with some objects. So what we do is we have a cable that connects on the back on the inside of the unit that is a USB connection, and that has the license dongle on it. If you need to move it to another place, you can open the lid, remove the stick, and place it wherever you want. You have the license is not bound to any kind of hardware. It's not licensed to your BIOS. It's not licensed to anything. You could paste it. You could use it on whenever environment you want. The important thing is that yes. Mhm. Yes, yes. In fact, the only requirements for Prime to run is you could be running if you want to have a parallel unit ready to be used. What you could have is a We do not recommend Ryzen, but but it's possible to run it with AMD, with the latest AMD processors, which I know that are a little bit cheap than your Xeon processors. So you could have it running on Ryzen, on AMD or Intel, but you must run it with NVIDIA. So a 3060 or maybe a 2070 or maybe a 1080 Ti. The important thing with the NVIDIA side is that you're using boards that have CUDA cores. We usually use the RTX because those are enough to run all the properties without overheating or having issues with the rendering, because those are very beefy boards. If you're running 4K, we really recommend to have one of the RTX boards. But in reality, there are a lot of people that are using Prime with NVIDIA 3060. Right now, I have my personal Prime on a 3080 Ti without any issues. What we recommend to have is also Windows 10 for the moment, because we are not certified on Windows 11. We are going through that process throughout this year. I know that Windows 10 is being not discontinued, but is being removed with the security features, or it's um, being discontinued on the security side. So a lot of business or a lot of companies are going through Windows 11. Uh, we are not just yet there. We are not there yet, but we are aiming to have Prime working on Windows 11 on this year. So what you could have is a Windows 10 machine with NVIDIA board and with either AMD or Prime processors. The idea is that you would use also pretty beefy processors, such as the 5006, the 5060X AMD could be one of the use cases. Or if you're going through Intel, an i5, more likely an i7, a pretty beefy processor that takes care of the Prime environment. But you could have a separate unit that runs Prime, and you could remove the USB stick, paste it on plug it on the other one, and keep on running. The only issue that you would have is that, yes, go ahead. The recommendations for Prime. Could you repeat that for me, please? I hear you a little bit far. Sorry, could you be a little bit closer to the mic? Sorry. Yes. For virtual environments, I don't know how you are going to have outputs on as a matrix environment, as a playout environment, because you would need to have a matrix connected to it. We also, if you're going to go through a spare case, you will need to have the same matrix board connected to the, not the same, but a matrix board that has the same amount of spigots. So an LA48, for example. If you're going through virtual, because you would like to have maybe a Prime that takes care of designing, for example, on a virtual environment, what we recommend are the T40s for a T40, or if you're going for AWS on an Amazon web server, they should have the where what which was it, the I would need to see. I would need to check it out. I was working on a virtual environment the other day, but I don't recall the specific version for that. I think it was the uh, A100 Ampere, but let me double check it, and let me give that information back to you as soon as I have it. You need to use Windows. Sadly, I'm a big fan of Linux, but you cannot use Linux for Prime. You cannot use Mac OS, so it's bounded to Windows. We have other software that is Mac bound, and we have other software that is Linux bound, such as New Sticker, but it's more for parsing information from satellites or from RSS feeds. We do not have Prime for Linux altogether. We have New Sticker, which is a different software altogether, which is a Python base on a Linux box. But it's a very basic. It's not a graphical character. It's a parser that lets you have information sent back to Prime into that uh, from that parser into a CG. But I think that's the only software that we run with Linux. But we don't have anything on we don't have any Linux based character generator, sadly. I know that Linux has a lot of advantages, such as there is a lot less bloat on the software, and it requires less maintaining because it's a more clean up environment. But sadly, we don't have anything designed for Linux because it's merely an issue with NVIDIA and the compatibility with NVIDIA. Um, so, uh, speaking about um, speaking about Linux, Windows, let me get you through the requirements for you to have an environment that works on a network environment, on a network infrastructure. So, for example, if you want to connect it through TCP/IP to Sony, or if you want to connect it through a Cameo environment or a MOS direct driven environment, what we would need to do is we need to have a couple of things cleared out. First of all, we would need to have the firewall disabled, so all the connections can be sent or can be. I have. Is the keyboard pressed on your keyboard by any chance? There we go. Thank you. So we would go into the firewall with advanced security, and we would need to disable the firewall properties. So we would set firewall off on all three profiles. And we would set the profile, if you're on a domain, we will set it on a domain scale. Or if you are on a private environment, we will set it to private. We would not set it to public. If you're using NDI, this is also a requirement for NDI, because you know that NDI takes care of a lot of bandwidth. And as soon as the firewall detects bandwidth or excess use of bandwidth, what it will do is it will chop off or start detecting and cutting off the frames on the transmission or on the connection, because it's a 125 megabytes of constant information that goes through the port that connects for the NDI services. And the other thing that we need to take into consideration, if you're going to, for example, use a broadcast environment for a MOS-driven environment, or if you're going through automation, is the policies, the local security policies. For that, we will need to go into our security options, and the last 6 options here, these should get disabled. If you ever upgrade Windows with a newer version of the software or newer version of Windows, such as, for example, let me see which version we have at the moment. We have the 22H2. If you jump to 22H3, for example, what it will happen is in some occasions, the third option, maybe the fifth option will get re-enabled automatically. And that will cause some issues on the connection level, because what it uses is UAC to send over a metadata. So it refers to itself to send over information. It refers to the Windows credentials to send over information for the environment. If you have a security breach, or if you have an issue with security and you will need to add a domain into the environment, or if you need to add or modify the credentials because everybody knows Chyronhego password, and you had a security breach, what we recommend if you have a MOS-driven environment, such as a Cameo workflow. I don't know if you do you have any kind of MOS-driven environment at the moment? No. Do you have a Cameo environment or a MOS-driven environment?
No, we don't have.
Okay. So I'm going just to mention it, but I know that you don't have it. But if you have any kind of security breach and you need to modify the user credentials, as well as you would have to have a more, maybe you want to have more control, so you add a domain into it. The unit that you add as a domain, first of all, you would need to reinstall Prime for that user. And you would need to have full admin control into that domain user, as well as you would need to have the same user and password for the Prime, as well as for the Cameo or any MOS-driven environment. Because what Prime does is it connects through the rest of the Chyronhego equipment by using the Windows Credential Manager. That Windows Credential Manager needs to be the same. So if you change either the ID of the unit or the password, it would have a mismatch with the other rest of the Chyron equipment. If by any chance what you want to do is you want to change the IP, or you want to, as well as you set it up into the domain, you want to have maybe you want to have a BP, or you want to have your own virtual LAN, we would suggest to also reach back to us if you have a Cameo environment. I'm just letting you know this because even though you don't have it, you might run into an environment that could potentially have it. Either if you work here, if you go and work on another environment that has a Cameo environment, it's good knowledge to have. So once we run through all of the things, through NVIDIA, through Matrox, through Windows, through the firewall, we can really start working with Prime.
Thank you.
It was an hour and a couple of minutes, I know. But all of that is required for you to understand
It's very
maybe it's
important.
not the complexity, but the troubleshooting. Uh, and also, if you have any issues, and let me remind you again, if you have any issues, please reach to customer support. They are very knowledgeable, and we have a lot of people that are constantly working on giving you the best feedback, as well as has all the knowledge needed for you for for these kinds of issues. Okay, do not hesitate. They're more than likely able to take the call and fix all the issues that you might have. I'm going through this because I was in customer support and I have a lot of knowledge of the guys. They are very, very knowledgeable. Uh, so we are on Prime. We have our preview on our program. We want to start sending messages on air. Okay. So there are a couple of things or ways of you to send objects. We're going to start sending objects, and then we're going to go through a little bit of a Prime configuration tour. First of all, it's very simple. If you like to play out any kind of graphics, you can drag and drop into the preview and then click on play, and then you would see your play out being sent over. If you have, so channel 1 is a very simple graphic. It's only a teller, so you would see the difference between fill and key. So you will see channel 1 on white as the key. And if you see the fill, you will see the color red. But this is just for a testing background to see if you have the fill and the key connected correctly, and all the outputs are connected as they should on the BNC connectors. So if you want to play out a little bit something a little bit more complex, such as something that has modifiable data, for example, lower third, we can load it up, and you would see a mini window here. Yeah, the fonts don't worry about. I don't worry about the fonts, but I will install it either way. We can go through the fonts in a moment, so I'm going to go through that in a moment. So what you have whenever you play out a graphic, and that graphic has a little bit more of a extra replaceables or content, you will have this um, control panel, as we call it. You can modify all the things that the scenes are created or based upon, and you can modify values, any kind of value that you would like to modify. In reality, the only limitation is your imagination. It's a little bit of a good thing to say, but you could modify, maybe you would like to modify the channel 7 to have a different image. You would like to modify maybe the colors on the name, on the letters. Maybe you would like to modify the color on this lower bar that appears back here. Maybe you would like to add more information, and or maybe you would like to modify the time that it takes for you to load the asset. Maybe you would like to attach, for example, how is it called? You would like to attach a database and grab the information from the database. All of that can be done on Prime. The only the only limitation is how do you deploy it, and how does it behave on the Prime environment. Let me tell you, the news name is a very old package. Okay, so it was based on Prime 3.6, so it has a couple of years now. The idea is that this could serve you as a test bench. I will provide you with that training environment as well, which is a little bit old, but it has all the capabilities that you would see on any Prime environment. And you can grab a reference from that and start creating your own. Prime 4.9 has also a lot of extra features, which they were not there on Prime 3.8 or Prime 4 or 4.4, which are newer for Prime 4.8.1, just let me tell you. So they have just a couple of months now, such as tables, JavaScript. Depending on the license that you have on your Prime, you have is this Prime 4K Advanced? Do you know the tiering that you have on your box by any chance? Okay. So we should have Prime 4K, but I don't have the tier as well. Let me see if the tier appears down here. Version 2. No, it's not. We need to add the new features for 4.9. Okay. After the training, let's see the. Let me speak with licensing so we can add the MOV, not the MOV, but the corresponding codecs that those are added into the newer Prime version. Give me one sec. Okay, sorry for that. So we want to modify maybe a name. Our name wants to be, for example, Pablo, and our subtitle trainer. As you can see, no information gets modified on here. Let me remove this one. Let me clear it out. So you have name, subtitle, and we can click on update. Now we have Pablo trainer here. And then we can set graphic off or graphic on. It depends. It has a different set of behaviors. And if we click play, now we would have the Pablo trainer. But if by any chance we want to modify it on live, we can also do that by, for example, what we can do is we can modify the value, but as long as we don't click enter, that behavior will not update. So I click enter. Maybe this is part of the old, yeah. So this needs to have an upgrade. Yeah, it has an upgrade behavior. So as soon as you modify something on this particular graphic, it says testing. Let me grab for you the training package. Training uh, prime training. Um, 1 second, please. If I don't have it here, I will have it for tomorrow's meeting. So worry not. I have a lot of packages. Chiron training, no. Prime training. I won't like to waste any time on here, so copy of prime training. There we go. Share, copy link, and I will start downloading this asset. But we can continue on either way. This is 655 megs. It should be over in a couple, 1 minute. Okay, so let's have that downloaded on the back while we go through here. So let's see what we can have. We can also have images being uploaded. Or maybe, oh, it's using the whole bandwidth, right? Yeah. Give it 1 moment. Give it 1 minute so we can have that training. We can have a more fluent uh, test. Yeah, these are all with upgrade on update behavior. Let's grab that training package. Okay, so let's wait on it 1 sec on the playout behavior, and let me show you the config side for Prime. Let's go a little bit back. So keep in mind that this is the first time that you are opening Prime. I need to set up the corresponding behavior. So we want to navigate from the top menu toolbar. We want to navigate and modify some values. So here we have project, new project. So this would allow you to have a new project created on the iProject folder. Open project will open the project folder and will let you select a new project for you to use. Let me tell you that all the things that you see like an archive folder, those are Prime projects. And all the folders that you see, which are Windows folders, those are folders that Prime didn't understood as Prime projects, so it didn't change the icon for it. If you see the archive folder, it means that those are ready to be loaded. Why? Because in our media drive, in our Prime, we have our projects here. And inside of any of these, if you go, for example, inside of K-On, you see only data. That's the only folder that you see. But if you go into any kind of, for example, news demo, you would see all the other folders as well as a projects.cpf. This project.cpf lets Prime know, hey, this is a compatible version for Prime. This is a lock, this is a reference to Prime saying, hey, I'm able to be loaded on Prime. If you copy the CPF folder into the, for example, into the K-On, it will also load up the same icon and everything, and it will see if it has any of the folders missing, such as audio clips, fonts. The other one only had data, but this one has all this file structure. As soon as you have a project CPF, or as soon as you create a new project or a new project, it will recreate all the required structure for you to add content into your project. So that's one of the main differences with Lyric. And you were asking me what was better or what was best for starting out, or what was better from the startup. Lyric was not a project-based software, so you could have your scenes, which in Lyric are messages, throughout all your C or I drive, or maybe you had an external drive and you wanted to load scenes from there. You could have that. There were no issues playing out scenes. But what carried over was an issue with if you were loading images on that specific scene, the pathing for those images were not descriptive enough, the soft link for those images were not specific enough. So you end up with a scene that has to load images and resources from all parts of the computer, and that ended up having issues where maybe the client removed one folder that it had on the iDrive saying full screens, and inside of full screen said it was like images.old, and for example, somebody wanted to use that, so they changed to images new, or maybe instead of images, they were like, well, I had a typo, so instead of NHL, I put NHB, so I changed the name of the folder, and altogether, all the assets were missing. So what Prime does is, hey, I will create a project, I will create a structure, and everything that is on this structure will be automatically um, designed for you to load information into these into these folders that we have here. And if you want to navigate the project, you could just click on the icon here, and you would see all the scenes, all the folders that you have for your project. Even though those folders are not created, what Prime will do is it will create an empty folder for that. If you didn't have any kind of, for example, panels, it will create a project. It will create not a project, but a folder. For example, you have style, scripts, scenes, model images, fonts, audio, clips. So let's open, for example, did you have base? No, no base here. So if we click here and we go to base, nothing. And now you have a base. It's empty, but you have a new folder inside of your project. That gives you a lot of control over what you create. And gives you a lot of, also, it allows you to move this project from one device to another. If you don't have Hub Drive is a file sync solution for the Cameo, and it's strictly for a Cameo environment. But if you don't have it and you need to move the, I don't know, maybe via network, or maybe via USB flash drive, or maybe through or an NVMe or a HDD hard drive that you connect through USB 3.0 at the back of the unit, you want to move this to the other box to have the same package. It's easier for you to right click and compress, or just right click, copy and paste into that drive and paste it over into the other box. So you don't need to recreate the project, or you don't need to look for the folder that were on the C drive downloads because it had some images, or maybe you had pictures that were on the pictures folder. Everything is compiled inside of the Prime projects folder on your project. So it's easy to manipulate. We also have a common folder, which is important because common folder, it's the only folder that Prime interacts that it's not a Prime folder. So it doesn't have a CPS folder. This common folder has the particular behavior that any of the projects that you create, they can grab information from this common folder. And whenever you want to send over or copy over the news demo, for example, to share over another places, that's where it becomes an issue when playing out graphics. Because instead of just copy and pasting, what you would need to do is you would need to go into Tools and go into the Asset Viewer. And here we would need to select, for example, the project, for example, Analog Clock. Or that's weird, we don't have the other ones. We should have the other ones here. So for example, let's refresh it. So for example, for the project Analog Clock, I could be that we are loading let me see settings. Where is it loading things? Folders, iPrime projects common, iPrime projects, iPrime settings. This is okay. Startup scenes, nothing. Okay. Oh, it means because we just load up the news demo. That's why it's not showing up. I would assume if we close Prime alt and we reopen it once again, since those were added now, if we open Prime now from the drop-down menu, we will have that. Okay. So if we go to the asset viewer, okay, now we have it. So there are some things with Prime which are which you need to do to have some of the objects appear in some of the menus. For example, if you open a new project, you will see it on the drop-down menu, but whenever you go into the asset viewer side, you will need to restart the Prime application to have those projects show up on the asset viewer. This is one of the particular things that Prime has. The idea is that since Prime is loading a project base, there are some options that doesn't get refreshed until you restart Prime. One of those is the asset viewer. The other one is that the one that we are going to go through is on the configuration side, on the playout configuration. So asset viewer, we are on the news demo, and we have some of the objects on the. Let me be clear. Let me go through and download, for example, 9set icon. Let me grab for example, this image from an esports team that it's from Argentina. So let me save this image. Downloads. Okay. So let me grab this 9set team logo. Go into media, Prime, projects, common. Here are images. Let me add it, for example, down here. So icon. Let me paste it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the news demo, scenes, and what I want to do is to have, instead of the live lower third that you have there, I'm going to replace that image with another image. I'm going to replace this image with the image of 9set, flag top, texture, original, live, at the live one, this one. So I'm going to go through on the common folder here, icon, 9set. I'm going to reduce it a little bit on the scale. No, no, no. I want to have that bounded scale. There you go. So you have .5. There you go. So I'm going to save it. Going back to my playout, remove this one and paste it once again. And then you have that 9set logo. So what I will do is I want to have that, since that's on the common folder, that's not on my project folder. What I will do is I will go into my tools, asset viewer, and I will say, hey, zip assets. I want to zip them all. I want to zip them. So it will show up on here. We would need to see TGA files. I'll leave it down. Let me see. Where is we have a lot of assets. PBM, JPEG. No, this was not a TIFF. Well, it should be on here. So I will, did I close it? I think it got a little bit stuck. Oh yeah, it got stuck there. Zip files. Yeah, it seems like it doesn't like that. Yeah, it doesn't like when I close the zip files. Give it a moment. Maybe it will rearrange it soon, or what we can do is it's easier. We can close all windows, or we can call the task manager. And yeah, are you sure you want to close Prime? Yes. So Prime, is it hung in there? No. So this could happen. The zip asset files, on some occasions, it's a little bit quirky. So let me see if the new slide has the logo. Yeah, it has it. So view, tools, asset viewer, news demo, zip assets all the way, export selected, a news demo, and they will start compressing things. And inside of this compression, what it will do is it will grab the folder, the asset that was on that folder, on the common folder. Or maybe this is a little bit too big for an example. There are a lot of files. Eh, Usually we do it with the training, which is a little bit more tinier. My bad. So let's wait for it until it finishes. But what it will do is it will grab that. In short, it will grab that image from the common folder. It will import it in here, and when you export the package back, what it will do is it will re-import it back into the common folder. So what it will do is it will allow you to have it on a zip file as a complete project, and you can carry it over wherever you need it. I wanted to show you this because it's important that you use the common folder, because on some occasions you would need to use the common folder because, for example, oh, there you go. So compress zip file, if we go inside of it, use demo, project, use demo, and if you go to common, images, icon, you have the 9-set team logo. So as soon as you decompress it, you also have the C drive, program files, Chyron, Prime, and the Chyron data objects. If you have any data objects connection, any kind of logging, any kind of playout or framework, if you want to also add any kind of, if you want to add the carbon copy of your Prime instance that you were using to load Prime, you could also have it on here. So it also has the Prime behavior bounded by the zip asset. And on the common, you have the images, the external image, as we just added. So what we will do is, as soon as we decompress it, because you have a compressor and then you have a decompressor, so you have an unzip asset, so you can select the news demo, and you can have the zip file projects where you need it. Project, use your original destination, or you can select a specific project where you can unzip it, and you can select all items if you have fonts or if you have any other object that usually was already loaded on here. Okay, and then we can install the fonts if you have fonts that were specific for that environment. So you can import the selected, and he will say, hey, everything already exists. So you would like to override it? No. Boom. In case that you didn't have the package, what it will do is it will import everything from the package as well, from the common folder and for the C drive. So you would have a carbon copy of the corresponding graphical package that is modifying all the status on Prime. Okay, that's for the importation and exportation of the project. There are some things that you need to understand, that Prime, since Prime works as a project, Prime loads specific values as a project. Okay, we will go through that on the settings side. Before jumping into the configuration file, are there any questions? Are there anything that you would like to see in specific that maybe called your attention? Maybe there are some things that you would like to review from the layout perspective or training perspective, I'm all ears.
Pablo, Pablo, please, I have a question
Mhm.
about the format that we can include in the Chyronhego. It's all the standards, or we have some specification for that? The
For the
format
media
for
format.
image, for video, for
So right now I need to add the codec for H.264 as well as the MOV, which are based for the Prime newer versions, which is for 4.8 onwards. But you should be able to use MOV files, MP4 files, TIFF images. Most of the formats are supported by Prime. If you can manage it with Windows without adding any kind of Windows well, in the case of MOV files, uh, those are supported by VLC and those are supported by most of the media encoders. Um, but Prime mostly has access to all of the type files that you use. You could also have XML objects. You could play out with parsers, as I was telling you about the automation. You could use either images, you could use WebM files, you could use MP4, MOVs, Targa files, TIFF files, JPEG, um, uh, BMP. I think that there are few objects that you cannot use. Prime is a very, very inclusive environment. In fact, if you have an object that doesn't work, and that's the other thing, if you have a font that you didn't install, and let me go back to fonts for that, uh, all of the projects have their own font. Whenever you are trying to work on them or not, most of the projects have their font folder right here. So if by any chance what Prime does is Prime stores them to have a guideline of, for example, I'm using Impact, I'm using that font, I'm using X font, I'm using maybe a Chinese font, or maybe I'm using an indie font. It will add it on here as a font that it's embedded on Prime, but it will not install it on Windows. This is based for you if you want to send over or compress the font, the demo folder, or the if you want to compress your your project. What it will do is it will add it to the other places that you decompress it, but you are able to select if you want to install it or not. If you do not install the font, what it will happen is that you will get it. For example, if you load it on here, you will get an icon here, an X icon that says, "Hey, this font was not installed. This font is missing because it's not installed, or this font is missing." The same happens with the rest of the images as well as movie files, clips or images. So if there is a non-supported image or a non-supported clip file, or maybe there is something that is not licensed for it, you would get a red X on here, which it would say, hey, this is not supported. Maybe it's not licensed, or maybe it's not there, or maybe it cannot load on Prime. If it is not licensed, it will give you a red X and it will say, hey, this is not supported altogether. So let me see, since we don't have let me see, loading scene, you will have the error files, the warning files, and the messages files. And here you would see if you are able to play out the graphic, if you're able to X or Y. Prime background, let me see. Yeah, you're able to play it out without issues. So it will give you a brief preview on what it's trying to do on the background. So
okay,
you have all the information that you need on Prime here. And if you are loading a specific image that doesn't load, what you can do to have a more throughout more through is it through thoughtful? I think it's thoughtful, or a more broad view on the issue. What you can do is you can go into the login file that you have in your settings, and you can enable the Prime Workflow Logger. And here you can select what you want to load, and it will open a log file. And inside of that log file, you can select, hey, maybe I want to, maybe every time it loads a message object, maybe every time it loads an object, maybe every time it loads a shortcut or an action trigger. I want to have information, what is happening on the background. Okay, so you would have this workflow logger enabled, and every command that you send and every action that it takes that is checked on here, it will create you a log. So if we go into the C Chyron Prime, let me see if it's on log. No, workflow. Since I didn't click on accept or apply here, it didn't create the folder. But as soon as I click apply, I should have the workflow. Okay, we should have the workflow. Hey, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Ah, workflow. I just saw it. Logger settings, config settings. Maybe because I didn't trigger anything at the moment. So I set everything. I click apply, and I maybe send a scene from here into here. Now you have all the workflow logger. You see,
Yeah.
all the things that were playing out on here, and we will have the Prime workflow logger. So now you have all the actions, everything that gets played in. And if you receive an object that was not able to play it in, you will have that object here laid out saying, hey, issue on, error on, message, not license, X, Y, or Z. This allows you to review specific actions or specific options inside of the play outside. So if I clear out, it also select the clear state. If I play another thing and I click play, all the information gets loaded. Here I have a red X. So I have a could not load a font. So it means that I don't have those fonts installed on the environment. That's why they are saying, hey, you have 4 errors here. And then I'm going to clear it out. If I go down here, again, into the C drive, Chyron, Prime, workflow, action state, maps, scene state loaded. Maybe because I didn't type anything, that's why it's not showing up. But I'm sure if you type into the workflow, it will also say, hey, we have an issue on here. But in reality, the idea is to enable the workflow logger. As soon as you find something odd on the scene, what you will do is you will see that on here. We also have a general logger, which is the Prime logs, which is on the same folder that we have here. So this PC, C, Chyron, Prime, logs. Let's see, which is the lastest one? 2024-03, they modified. Yeah, this one. We have this one, which is a more, it's more guided towards functionality. So you have edit on control, FS maps. Oh, there you have, mira. My bad, I spoke in Spanish. Editor control could not load Dini regular. So the other one is for a more specific control of the scene. And this is a general, this has everything. So you load up the regular fonts. This log is the one that we use for diagnosing issues on the designer or on the development team. If you had issues, this logger is very helpful because if you had issues on the Matrox, maybe on the Prime engine, or on the NVIDIA side, as soon as you run Prime, it will give you the Prime version, it will give you the Prime engine, the GS2, the version of Windows, the Prime application, and it will have all the registered software that it requires to run. And it will also have the Matrox driver, the connector path if it's using a wrong connector path, or if it has any issues on that side. And you will have also the GPU connection. If your driver settings are not executing properly, you will have a splash issue, a splash screen issue. If you have a timeout, you will see everything that you see on here is more of a more guided towards engineering to review possible issues on the startup or on the playout behavior. If you run, for example, if you have something on automation that you would like to trigger, that it's a specific scene, and it doesn't play out, we would suggest if to check on the logs to see what is the corresponding issue that behaves to that log. But if you are more on a specific, hey, I know that the issue is on the action trigger, or I know that the issue is on a message, it's a more clear approach to use the Prime workflow. The login has everything. Okay? And that's why you can use as many fonts or as many types of objects that you want, as long as the logger determines that those are not having issues with the play outside. That's one way of figuring out if you have a specific object that does not behave well with Prime. But Prime, once again, takes most of the assets and plays them out without any issues. Okay, and with that, we are wrapping up for today. I know that we have a couple of minutes extra. Are there any other questions, or would you like to, or do you have some extra time if you want to review some configurations? Let me know. I'm more than eager to have to, if you want to review something in particular.
Yeah, we can spend more time. Pablo, please, I have another question about
Mm-hmm.
compression.
Mm-hmm.
According to what we see before in other systems, I see that the compression here take more time. That is because we need more resource here in our machine, or it needs some special test and verification that spend time.
When you refer to compression, you're referring to the time that it takes to zip the files on a Prime project. For example, the project of the news demo project that was created.
Yeah.
So that it depends mostly on the amount of objects that you have on your folder. The Prime project, this demo project was it is a very complex project from the times where Prime 381 was released, and it has a lot of flaring, a lot of minor assets. But I assure you that the newer projects are more cleaner, are more straightforward, and shouldn't take that much time to compile. The issue is here that we have a lot of flaring. We have a lot of, for example, the quotes template has a lot of information on them. And all of these information that you can manipulate is also part of the variables that you can manipulate on the Prime. So for example, these up and down arrows, these minor, these non-change or these lines, as well as the flaring behavior, the coloring pattern, they are using a lot of the Prime more advanced features. For example, the masking, the, how is it called, the texture package. And those takes a lot of objects and a lot of time to compress. But newer packages such as the training manual, that's the training demo, which we can open because we have already downloaded, those are very simple to compress and very simple to decompress. So let me show you. So we can unzip the assets, have it on downloads, Prime Training, open. We see that it has a lot less assets. Do you remember the other one was full of assets? It has, so this is 171 files. The other one was about 2,000 files. So use original destination, all items, install fonts, import selector, and the importation, since you already had the imported project here, write it, yes. So now we have the, oh no, it got pasted over the news demo. My bad, my bad. Because I imported it into a different, my bad, ANSIP assets, prime training, original destination, no, current package, I need to create a new project for this. My bad. This is I will remove and I will recreate the news demo project altogether. But this is open, no, this is new project, new folder project, training, open the project. And that's the other thing, as soon as you create the project, all the folders and structure, as I was telling you before, they get created on the spot. So as you can see, testing training, you have all the project folders already created. And here what we can do is you can go into tools, unzip, prime training, install fonts, all items, use original destination. We can use current project, import selected. Apply choice to all items. In this case, this is the project CPF, so yeah, we're going to write it. So this is the prime training. It was imported, so we can, let's see if we can go into the asset viewer. Let's see if we need to reboot the prime to have that project to be selectable. So let's go through that. So now we should have it on tools, asset viewer, training. We have an MP4, which is missing. Maybe it's part of the, let's see, background, warp. Okay, we don't have that asset here. And this is part of the common folder that was not exported as it should, but it's on the CPF file. So let's go into asset viewer, zip assets, all items, export selected, and iPrive projects training, save. And the compressing should take very little because we are not interacting with the common folder. There you go. It took a couple of seconds. So depending on the dimensions of the project, there are some projects which are 56 gigs, 120 gigs. There are projects that are 125 megs. Depends on the level of on the dimension that you have on the project. There is no recommended project size. There is no recommended project standards. It depends on the station that you're working in, and it depends on the quality of the assets that you want to work with. Remember that you're using NVMe, my bad, you're using SSDs for your iDrive. So those are 3 terabyte. You have three SSDs which has 3 terabytes each, and those are on RAID 5. If you're having issues playing out content, we should need to review the SSDs because those should be capable enough to run most of the 1080p content without issues. 4K content natively depends on the asset. but we do not recommend for you to run 4K MOV files, for example. What we recommend is to have everything on 1080, and the Prime will take care of overscaling it to 4K without any issues. So what you can have is 1080 content, 1080p content that it's being used on a 4K environment, and you can use an overscale, and Prime takes care of overscaling everything without issues. You could have 4K content, um, but depending on the density of the byte of the of the of the MOV file, if you're using MP4, it shouldn't have as much of an impact. But if you're using multiple MOV files, it could take a little bit of a hit whenever you're working with it. For example, if you have 3 or 4 clips playing out on the same moment on 4K with a very dense bit rate, it could stagger a little bit. Okay.
Pablo, please, is there any features on the Chyronhego to control the resource?
Such as, for example,
The NVIDIA or the processor, or for example, according to the project we work in, if we work on there to give priority for some task and to deny from others, if we don't have enough resources.
mhm, that would depend mostly on the scene. So resources, you say, as for example, you're using another application, for example, or resources
No,
inside of the same
because
Prime
on Chyronhego always, but different
on Prime.
projects, or one
Okay.
on air or another one you just preparation for another event.
So the behavior on Prime is that we prefer to have, if you're going on playout, we prefer that whenever you're using it for playout behavior, you are not editing content. That's our main guideline. If you're going out on live, we do not want you to be playing or toying around with the editor. That's why we also have a designer box that you could use, or if you could ask for a designer box or a designer license, you could have a software license that takes care of designing things while you're on air. If you need to design or make minor changes on the scenes that you're currently working on, what you could have is you could open the editor side, make your modifications, create your changes, save the corresponding scene, and close the editor. Because Prime, what it has is it has the capability, which Lyric didn't have, of have an editor to work on a discrete way. So you don't have you don't constantly have the options to modify or go through the editor and use those resources. One of the ways that Prime takes care of maximizing resources is by turning off the editor side, so you don't have it constantly open. If you would like to have other changes applied to the Prime to reduce the load or reduce the environment impact on the maybe on the LA Force or on the NVIDIA side, you could go into the player configuration and modify some values on the player configuration. So, for example, the anti-aliasing could be one of the many features, the proxy output, the proxy frame rate. If you are going through a video shape, if you have, for example, I think those are the most significant changes that you could do. If you go into advanced, we have our media cache and we have our clip size and video input, that our font engine as well, that takes care of the ingest of external sources or complex writing or scripting. And then we have, I think those are, yeah, those are the main changes that you could do to ensure a more how could I say this? A more it's not compressed, but it's more of a a light environment for the NVIDIA board, most likely. Not for Matrox, but for NVIDIA. So if you remove the anti-aliasing, that will remove a load from NVIDIA. If you remove the proxy output, this is only for the preview mini window that you see here. You can remove the resolution for it. You can reduce the resolution, and it would only affect the operator here, but it will reduce the load on the Matrox as well as on the NVIDIA side. And if you reduce the proxy frame rate, it will also reduce the load on the environment. Usually what most broadcasting environment does is the proxy on here, they put it on 1/8 because you're required to have a proxy preview to have a corresponding, to have the best working environment. Because if you remove it, it's like whenever you try to load or preload or load something on the preview, it it's prone to fail. It doesn't fail every time. It could fail because you don't have control over that preview. And then you can reduce the proxy frame rate to 1/4. So what I've seen on some stations that use 4K resolutions or above 4K resolutions is that they go on quarter, proxy output they put it on 1/8, and anti-aliasing they get it disable it, or they put it on 1/4x. That's the best setup that you could have for having Prime working as fast as it can, or not as fast, but as lighter as it can. If you want to review something in particular with the Prime engine and how it behaves, we have the Prime engine performance monitor, which takes care of reviewing each individual process for Prime, or that Prime takes care. So let's wait until Prime connects, and let's server reconnect. So here you can see all the tasks that Prime is running. So if we send, for example, if we send, let's see, this one, and we open the monitor here, you would see the initial load, and then you will see the values going way down, because the initial load is what it takes for the Matrox to output, for the GPU to connect. But the idea is that most of our values are below the 100 threshold. Even though they are on 90, that's not an issue. The issue becomes apparent. The issue becomes blatant when you have all of your values above 100. So if you're, for example, having a database that it's on a loop behavior, for example, you are constantly trying to search for an object inside of a database and that object does not exist, and you are searching for next until you find that object, well, that might be a very critical issue where it will start to ramp everything to 150, and Prime will crash altogether. That's it. It depends on how do you also create your scenes. If you want to create your scenes on a very complex way, where you have a lot of variables and a lot of changes or minor changes inside of the behavior, that could also refer to the process or to the speed of the process. I am working with a 2110 environment, which are Matrox LA5's 2110 units, which are IP boards, and they are having issues connecting to the NMOS map, for example. So they are timing out. So whenever they start, and whenever I send some graphics, the NMOS map receives that information. But since it takes so long to connect to the NMOS map because it fails or it times out, the Prime engine starts to blow up all the way up. And also it doesn't help that the package is bounded to a database, which is very complex. That takes a lot of of processing power. So depends on the how you structure your package, and depends on some properties that you have. And lastly, it depends if you're able to correctly output the signal or you have any kind of issues on your matrix side. Did that help you out
Yeah,
or
yeah,
clarify a couple of questions that you had?
yeah. Thanks, Pablo. Please, I want to go back to the first question from Marco.
Mm.
According to the connection between the mixer video and the Chyronhego,
Hmm.
if I understand well, you told us that to work in 4K, it's take more resource and more details. If we work on TCP EP, I think I think there is no way to get the to work on air only on TCP EP on 4K.
Um, you are the commands that you are sending from Sony or that you are sending through TCP/IP. The only commands that you're sending is, hey, I have this message, load it on preview, and send it to live. So we have a
For
list of
example,
commands that we can use, uh, which are very simple commands. So we can add an intelligent interface here. And for example, you have your Sony LC port here. The connection is TCP. And what we can do is we can go into rules. And if your environment is capable of sending commands, we should need to send any of these commands. So if we want to clear or if we want to send a specific command, we can pload or pplay or p. For example, we are going to go through this in specific tomorrow if you want through raw commands. But the idea is that if you're able to trigger commands from your Sony, or if you are able to load a command line or a text file that has commands, and you can reference those to the corresponding port list. The idea is that you will have payload, and then you can select a scene name. In this case, what we are going to say is a message, because you're going to work on messages. You're not going to work on scenes. So you will load a number, and that number will refer to the scene that you're trying to load with the corresponding object. You are sending a very, 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 very tiny 1K command, 1K file.
but if
Uh,
we want to get the live on our machine in Chyronhego to activate, for example, the tracker or any other features, we need the video in our machine or not?
I'm not following you.
If
Could you
we
rephrase that for me?
if we get the live the video on our
Mm,
machine on Chyronhego to activate
mm.
the tracker, for example,
What is the tracker, for example?
I don't know to find.
Is it a scene inside of Prime?
I don't know
So
exactly. I want just
so
to
for
get.
example, you want to play out, for example, this multi-style, or you want to play some graphic in particular. You want to do the following thing. You want to load it on preview, and then you want to play it out
There is no
with your Sony
there is
LC.
no chance to get the video from the mixer and do some modification on the video to hide something to put the logo, for example, in different area.
That would depend on how it's built and what kind of commands you can send to Prime. So if you have a way of, for example, we have rules
Top
here.
line, I want to put it in a specific area on the video, not just to put it like this. So I should filter the video I had. So normally I need to have the video.
Chyronhego have the card have only output. There is no card input. You can go with the program of the mixer into Chyronhego and then you go out with Chyronhego.
Oh, so you want to have a DSK, so a video feed, and use that
Exactly.
feed inside of the
Yeah,
as an input. Okay, so that depends. Since you're using 4K, you're using the HPGOTs from from your Matrox. No, you cannot have
And
your
this
video
is
images.
possible normally. It's possible.
Yes, of course. If you have 1080p, you are able to use all of those eight as either four. Uh, Usually, what you would do if you have video inputs is you would have fill channels instead of fill and key, and you would have your input, and you have that input bound to that field channel. So you will start putting information on top of that automatically. Okay? Or if you would like to have an input here, but you could have an input here. I think we have one. No, we don't have one. But if you go into the editor and you had an input, you would be able to select the input here, text rectangle, video input here. So you can select the video input. So you can either set the downstream input as your object, or you could select any of the
Just for
cameras that
the
you can
camera.
input.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Right, but for that you need to be able to modify the player configuration because as you are seeing right now, we're using BNC 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you have 8 connections
And
Yeah,
it's
now they
for
are
4K.
connected only for go out. One fill and one.
but it's possible to get.
Yeah, but we have to change the cabling of the
Yes, we will need to
system.
change the standard from
Yeah,
4K to 1080.
yeah. We have to change connection.
Oh, I thought so. Usually, when you are going through 4K, what you would do is you will have your router to use the 4K feed. So to use the I don't know if you're sending it through a decimator or through a composer, and that sends you a unique feed into the router, or how is the setup that you have embedded in your station, or if you have the 8 connections fed on your router. But the idea is that you would use that as a composition layer to use it on top as a as an upscaler or as a drum as you would use the camera that you have on your order as a DSK, and you would paste the graphic on top. You would load the graphic on top because the graphic has key and fill, so it's already pre-cutting the section that you're going to send the graphic in.
I send you on mail the diagram in AutoCAD. It's only
Okay.
a screenshot. You can see it. But they go directly into the mixer. And the second output, because we had a quad to one single channel 12G, and we go with one output into the mixer, the second output in a patch panel.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Okay, that one is the configuration now. How is cabling? But
Yeah, we will
it's,
need
it's,
to
it's
change the
possible. Then,
configuration.
yeah, if you have to make this, we have to change the
Yeah,
not
but
not
you would not
not
be able to have 4K. You would have 1080.
yeah.
But yeah, it's possible to have to have camera feeds directly into the prime.
Yeah.
Depends on how you want to use it. We can set it up without any issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for me, I can send
So
you a signal directly inside. If you wanna try, we can try. It's not a problem.
yep, I would suggest if we could do
Fast
if you could do
cabling.
that tomorrow.
Exactly, fast cabling. Only one cable put it there, not real cabling.
Come again?
Not a real cabling. A good cabling is only for test. We can do. If not, I have to change completely the position in the patch panel. If I need
Yeah,
input,
that's the main issue.
yeah, I need
You need
I
to
need
change the whole
the
structure.
converter work in the other mode. 12G quad is little bit difficult. but for a single for try we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The only thing is that whenever we change the behavior from 4K to 1080, you need to flash the matrix. That's the first thing. And whenever we flash the matrix, as later after we flash the matrix, we will be prompted with the with the video connectors. I would like to go through the player configuration as well as the editor side tomorrow, if that could be a possibility. So we could also have that input to do a test.
Okay. In which input?
That input, we will be able to see it as soon as we modify the player configuration.
Okay, make a
Because
modify maybe into my draw, ma easy, easy way. Which input you wanna, and I have to check if I have the other conversion to LG.
uh, what what we can do is we can set it up now.
I have some Everts board free in the frame. I can do that.
Okay, let me change to 1080p. Okay, so let me add an input. So we are going to use VNC 1 and 5. So, and this is going to change the firmware altogether. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it to 1080p 50, and we're going to select the input 1 as a downstream keyer. And we're going to update the firmware, and we're going to reboot the unit to prepare it for tomorrow. Is that correct?
Okay. And
Okay, so
tomorrow morning I may modify.
the connections.
I take
So
the router.
we will need three cables in total for that change for tomorrow.
Okay.
We will need the fill and key for the first one. Instead, I think we would need just the fill for the first one because the key is not needed. So let me make that modification as soon as I finish the firmware update. Give it one moment. Uh, So far, how are you seeing Prime? Have you were you working with which kind of graphic generators before? Were you working with Avid? Were you working with CG5? Or is this the first time that you are setting up an environment?
First time.
Okay,
First time.
a lot. There's a lot to learn then.
Yeah, is a vase empty.
Okay, so the more the merrier first. And the other thing is that whichever question you have, please let me know so we can dig a little bit deeper on some things. So let me apply the changes here instead of video and key, only video. VNC1, let me apply that. Okay, and let me reboot the unit. No, yes, reboot, wait for partner.
Oh, if you answer my mail with modify, for me tomorrow morning you find I make modify, and the afternoon we can try.
Okay, give me one sec. Uh, so I can let you know which SDI in we are going to need for camera input.
Yeah, but I can give you the camera you want after with the router because I take maybe a router output or something.
As long as you can connect it to the back of the unit, we are good to go. Because we need to connect it not from the router, but we need to connect it to the back of the unit because it's going to be directly fed
Okay.
into the Prime box. Give it one moment to flash the NVIDIA, the matrix, and I'll log in once again.
Because I already have some cable ready for connect.
Sometimes it takes a little bit to flash, but it's okay. There we go. Reconnect. Car. So let's open Prime. Let's see if Matrix pop up here. For tomorrow, we're going to review issues with the drives, with the hard drives, as well as we're going to dig a little bit deeper on the player configuration, on the setup for if you want to create your own configuration, and we're going to start digging a little bit into the editor as well as on the playout side and the editor side and how they work together. Let me know if you want to see something in particular as well. So now you have the config, player configuration. You would see VNC1 as the video in and VNC2 as the video out. If later down the line we want to change, and I would suggest if we could do this, because I want to share with you the downstream as well as the input fed through the scene. I would suggest if you could have also a VNC6 connected as a key. So VNC2 for video, VNC6 for key, VNC1 for input 1.
That one they are 12G.
Come again?
12G. 4K.
No, these are 1080p.
HD. HD.
Okay.
Yes, because for 4K, we need to have the 4 connectors. In fact, if we send over a video now, you would see on one of the quadrants, if I'm not mistaken.
Pablo,
Do you see it?
okay. No, on the field we don't see.
No field. Only, do you see any kind of image on any of the quadrants?
No. Into the mixer, no. Because the key is the out is the input number.
It should be input number.
19.
Let me see. You sent me a message.
Input
This
number
was
20. Input number 20.
input 2. Should be.
But now the mixer is setting in 4K. We have to change the input source into the mixer.
Oh, I thought that the converter that you had was a 12G signal.
No, they're going 12G. I can see into the. We have a Black Magic monitor, reach 4K, 12G, 4K HD, 3G, all without problem. I have to check. In the test panel, 1, 32, 31. Let me a second.
هذاك الدوزيام سوفتوير اللي طلعوا اسكو تاع انفورماسيون برك ولا تقدر دير فيها موديفيكاسيون؟
وين الدوزيام؟
اسمو داك
هذا مونيتور. برايم اونجين بيرفورمانس
ماشي برايم الاخر.
هذاك لا كارت جرافيك.
تاع لا كارت هذيك تاع البورد
كارت
هذاك.
جرافيك ديال الميزاجين.
In the middle is a chain. I have to go directly. I can make like this. I can make like this, Pablo.
Come again?
I have to prepare for tomorrow.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
now I pass into in a Black Magic. I have to jump the Black Magic, the same for the patch panel. And until now I don't see nothing. I prepare for you.
Okay.
Make me a screenshot of this, please. You send me your mail. Exactly.
Okay.
You send me your mail, and for tomorrow morning I prepare because I'm busy 10 o'clock. But in the morning I can come here prepare for you that. I come back at 12 o'clock and we start with the training, the second session.
Okay. Let me. I will send you a replay, a reply on the cabling that you send me, with the corresponding configuration for video and key, as well as for the video in. What we are going to do is, once we finish, we're going to prepare it for both case scenarios. If you want to load something from the video in, or if you want to have the video in as a DSK all the time. Okay.
Okay.
I just sent you the email, so let me know if you receive it. And you should have those VNC. The only thing that Matrox has an issue with is you cannot define which connectors you could have. That's for Matrox to define, and that's one of the things that it's outside of our outside of our realm, because it's Matrox proprietary. That's why we cannot have a specific. We cannot have PNC 1, 2, and 3.
Ah, okay.
If we say
Let me know if you received the mail, sir.
Until now, no. Don't call me sir, Marco.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I received
it,
now.
it's very normal for US personnel to say, "Sir, my bad."
sorry, I have one question, please.
Yes, sir. My bad. Yes.
No problem. It's mean if we change, if we put it again on the to the 4K, and next day, for example, another guy who want to put it again in HD, this input BNC6, BNC1, BNC2, it will change.
Yes. The main issue is that 4K uses 8 of the spigots. Uses all of the spigots.
Yes, for key
That's our main concern. If you could have a 12, we have new boards. The new LA5 that we are now managing, it has 8 full HD signals, and it has an extra 4 12G signals.
Okay.
Okay.
But in this
That
case,
could be, if you want to upgrade it. I know that we are currently working on using those LA5s, and down the line, we hope to use it as a standard.
and for this case,
Hmm.
BNC1, BNC2, BNC6, it can change.
Hmm. No, unfortunately, no. Those we can add more inputs and outputs if you want,
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are
uh,
No, no, the position.
but
About the position.
yeah, but the positions are matrix bound.
you are
Matrix defines the
in
ones
the
that we can use.
oh,
Ah, because now I
if
see.
we know before, we arrive with all the for all the 8 cable in the patch panel.
And
We make
you
the
patch,
chain
yes.
and you patch after.
Depend the software
Yeah.
that he give you.
But we don't know was possible to make this. Uh,
We are able to go through 4 ins. Well, we are able to go to 4 ins and 4 outs if you require. So, or we are 4 ins, 4 outs, or maybe we want to have 2 ins, and we want to have 3 fill and keys. That's also possible. Depends on your requirement.
yeah,
We
I
can
understand.
accommodate for that.
Yeah. But was better arrive with the cabling directly in the patch panel. In the patch panel, make all the patch. For
Hmm.
don't make different cable. For this, I ask you if it's possible because we don't know nothing of that software.
Well, I prepared these boxes with I don't recall with it was I think it was last year when I prepared these boxes to send it back to you. Um, but what the requirement was, it was for 4K. That's why I set them up for 4K.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but now the television, I told you, the problem is they have all HD.
Yeah.
If you have to arrive to the talk,
Hmm.
you have to convert always all the camera or take the camera. We have a reader system. We can manage a lot of signals separated and send all the camera there. But
Okay.
if it was all already native in HD, maybe it's better. It's only commercial because they wanna sell 4K, but in real need HD.
I understand. In a real environment, it's still being used 1080 as a standard.
Technician and commercial, they are completely different, guy.
Hey,
Is really is a word always.
there are some channels in Argentina which are on 720p, just to let you know.
Yeah.
So I know that there are standards to take into consideration.
Yeah.
So Marco, let's arrange everything for tomorrow.
Yeah. I
I
don't
will
know.
stop the recording at the moment, and let's reach each other back tomorrow on the same meeting. Or we have a different meeting for tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I see it. So, do you think that we have covered most of the things for today? I think that we have covered most of the things that we have for today.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we have the video signals, some of the editor side, and some of the, well, most of the issues that we could have on the corresponding drives. If you have any other questions, you can prepare them for tomorrow. And again, if you have any feedback that you would like to give me, I'm all ears. And I would like if you could give me any kind of feedback, such as, for example, I would like to see this in particular. I would like to have some reviewing, maybe in in the licensing side or wherever you might require. I'm more than happy to give you a hand with it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Pablo.
Okay, sirs. Sir, I don't know the name of everyone. My bad. If you want to send me like a list with everybody, I am
Yeah, I
more
can send
than
you a list.
happy.
Okay.
I will stop the recording